It has been 2 hours since the JFK files were released. Here's everything you need to know. CIA was watching Oswald before the assassination. And a man named Gary Underhill, who was connected to the CIA, fled Washington after he said that a small CIA clique was responsible. And 6 months later, he was unalived and they said he took his own life. Where have we heard that story before? Hours before Oswald was unalived, the FBI got an anonymous tip telling them that you should protect Oswald because the same thing's gonna happen to Oswald that happened to JFK, and it's gonna be done by the same group. Despite that, no extra security was taken for Oswald and he was unalived hours later. CIA memo says that a source told investigators that Jack Ruby and Lee Harvey Oswald met at a nightclub weeks before JFK's assassination. One that knew Ruby for years came forward and said that Ruby said he had to unalive Oswald, that there was a bigger picture, he was under a lot of pressure, and he was worried about the safety for his family. The KGB deputy director said that Oswald was never a KGB agent. The Soviets were afraid that the JFK assassination would allow the United States to create an extremist plot to start World War III. Documents exposed that the CIA had 34 secret bases around the world in Africa, Europe, Asia, and Latin America. At the time, the Italian press blamed the CIA. The FBI ordered surveillance on Oswald's whole family, including his wife, fearing she could become a public voice questioning the official story.
So I just woke up to everyone posting about this JFK file that came out yesterday, talking about how JFK calls Joe Biden a traitor. That's right. President Joe Biden, Sleepy Joe, he calls him a traitor. So I wanted to dive deep into this because as soon as I heard it, I'm like, the timeline doesn't make sense. So let's go ahead and go into it. I asked ChatGPT how old JFK was, or Joe Biden was, when JFK was assassinated, and he was 21 years old. So just right there, red flag. So what was he doing when JFK was assassinated? He was a college student. So why would JFK call Joe Biden a traitor in college? I don't know. I don't think that he would, because I don't think he knew about Joe Biden at that point. But in 1994, a threatening letter was addressed to Joe Biden calling him a traitor by JFK Jr. And they said that they concluded that the letter was a hoax. It was kind of one of those urban legends that this letter was sent out, I guess. So in 1994, Joe Biden was 51 and he was a senator of Delaware. And coincidentally enough, 1994 is when he was doing the 1994 crime bill as well. Now, ChatGPT says there is no credible evidence that Joe Biden was ever called a traitor by JFK, that this talk of the letter is a hoax. And the only conflict between them at the time was about this crime bill. Well, if you look at the bottom, which a lot of people are not, it says JFK Jr. It literally says it right there. It is not JFK, it's JFK Jr. It even says 1994, meaning that this letter is real. Like, they're saying it's a hoax, but no, it was real. It was a cover-up. They didn't want this letter coming out. I would assume that this letter would not have looked good on Biden, especially coming from JFK Jr. And the critique about the 1994 crime bill has been very well documented of how horrible it was for the black nuclear family. So, I mean, I could see why JFK was upset about it.
Despite anticipation, today's newly released JFK files do not provide a bombshell revelation about the assassination. The Warren Commission's 1964 conclusion that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone remains unchallenged. However, what these files do reveal is fascinating. Cold War espionage, CIA operations in Latin America, and classified intelligence on Oswald's connections to Soviet and Cuban officials. So why is this happening now? The U.S. government just declassified 80,000 pages of documents as part of an ongoing transparency effort. These files, now available at the National Archives, detail America's intelligence response to the assassination and the geopolitical climate of the 1960s. While the documents may not change the official story, they do offer a deeper look at the Cold War paranoia and shadowy operations surrounding that era. Expect historians and researchers to spend months combing through them for overlooked details. The question remains, is the full truth finally out, or is there more we'll never see?
Oh, dude, there's always more that we'll never see. ever. There's also, I just read something recently, I think earlier today actually, that was saying the CIA or somebody wanted to actually bomb places in Florida and blame it on Cuba, so they had a reason to go in there and get whatever they wanted to get or do whatever they wanted to do in there. And like JFK was like against that, and that's part of why he was assassinated. He didn't want to do what the powers that be wanted him to do in order to push their plan forward for world domination, whatever they're doing. It's crazy. It's all nuts, man.
Everything is starting to make sense now, Trump releasing the JFK files today. Let me explain. So on Monday afternoon, Trump is at the Kennedy Center, and he announces that on Tuesday, he is going to be releasing, quote unquote, all of the JFK files. Tuesday comes along, and the files do indeed get released. People were pumped. There was this document being shared widely pointing to maybe the CIA being involved, although I'm not really 100% sure if this was a new document or not. Also pretty sure that this was already public knowledge. There are also a few other documents that confirm that the CIA works closely with Israeli intelligence, which is once again not new information. We already know this. So yeah, overall, as expected, it was a bit of a nothing burger. The conclusion still, Kennedy was killed as he traveled in an open car motorcade through Dallas by a single gunman, Lee Harvey Oswald, on November 22nd, 1963. So why do I say all of this is making sense? It's all going according to plan. Well, because as we were all too busy looking at the files, this happened. Gaza experienced its deadliest day since November 2023 on Tuesday as Israel resumed the war with a deadly wave of airstrikes on the enclave. More than 400 fatalities. Now here's where the plot thickens a little bit. The White House confirmed to the media that they were consulted prior to those strikes happening on Tuesday. It also came out that Trump's promise to release the JFK files set off a, quote, all-night scramble, which would sort of indicate that they weren't ready to release these files quite yet. In other words, his announcement came as a bit of a surprise. A ploy to distract, perhaps, from the fact that we're about to get dragged into possibly another war on behalf of our closest ally. Yeah, because we found out today, 3 more aircraft carriers are headed over to the Middle East. But yet, we got a declassified document that says that JFK Jr. called Joe Biden a quote-unquote traitor. I don't know. This is just my take. Maybe I'm too cynical. You tell me.
People keep asking why Galactic Federation doesn't save innocent people or stop evil from happening. They do, but it's not that simple. You must see things from a higher perspective. Humans are souls. The soul never dies. Humans are souls having temporary experiences in bodies that would expire whether Galactic Federation was here or not. They intervene every day, and we never hear about the dark plans they stop. They aren't here to take all our problems away, because overcoming struggles also serve us. There are planets suffering in duality throughout the universe. Not everyone has assistance like we do. Their purpose here is to elevate humanity, not to hold us back. This is the lifetime everything changes. Death and sickness will end. Evil will be left behind. We are about to be given everything. See the bigger picture and don't give in to victim mentality.
Galactic Federation is one of my all-time favorite conspiracy theories. It's got Hollow Moon, Galactic Federation, Atlantis, and the Bermuda Triangle used to be, when I was a kid, it was my absolute favorite. Atlantis and Bermuda Triangle, but Bermuda Triangle not so much anymore. I just associate that with like gravitational pull and downwinds, and who knows, maybe a portal. I don't know. I haven't really kept up with the Bermuda Triangle lately. Maybe I should look into that. It's been a while.
Aliens have been on Earth for 80 years, according to this serious new documentary that premiered at South by Southwest. Look, I'm not a tinfoil hat kind of guy, but this story definitely caught my eye. On March 9th, a new documentary called The Age of Disclosure premiered at the South by Southwest Film Festival in Austin. And this isn't some janky, speculative History Channel schlock. Director Dan Farah interviewed 34 military, intelligence, and government officials for the film, as well as Secretary of State Marco Rubio and New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. According to The Guardian, the movie's revelations elicited audible gasps from the audience at South by. A number of the interviewees in the movie say they are directly aware of alien life existing on Earth right now, and that intelligent non-humans have been traveling to Earth since the 1940s to spy on our technology. Officials in the film also say that the government's withholding of this information is a serious security threat. One whistleblower, Luis Elizondo, calls it the most successful disinformation campaign in the history of the U.S. government. Jay Stratton, a former Defense Intelligence Agency official and director of the government's UAP task force, says in the movie, "I have seen with my own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings." The movie's director told Yahoo, "This is the biggest story there is. What's a bigger story than an 80-year-old cover-up of the existence of non-human intelligent life and revealing there's a secret Cold War race among nations to reverse engineer technology of non-human origin."
You got me there. I can't think of a bigger story than that. I mean, there's lots of gnarly shit going on. There's always bad things going on. There's always other things that need attention and fixing as well. But as far as like the biggest cover up, I would say like outside of like religion being a hoax for control, this is up there. This is definitely the biggest thing. I mean, this is the big one we all want answers to, right? This is like, is there life after death? Like size question. I'm gonna have to watch this movie. I know some of these people are a little less credible than others within the conspiracy theory community, I guess, for whatever reason, controlled opposition or something. But I'm interested. I'm gonna watch it. Are you?
The Matrix wasn't just a movie. It was a confession. But people watched it as entertainment instead of initiation. It showed you exactly how consent, illusion, false choice, and energy harvesting work. And most people just walked out quoting it, instead of actually unplugging from it. Truth doesn't hide. It's disguised as fiction. But the system counts on you thinking it's just a story. Wake up.
Have you seen the recent images that they got from Mars, that big square?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck is that?
So it is a bad day to be a professional skeptic, I'm telling you what. You're living the last 20 years poo-pooing all the aliens and UFO shit and whatnot, man, oh man, is it a rough day for you. Because that same shit was LiDAR from the South American forest. You'd be like, yeah, there's probably a village there. It makes sense.
This is even more clear than LiDAR.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
It's super square.
They think the rough estimates of this square are between 300 meters and multiple kilometers. They don't know how big it is. You know, it's because it's hard to get a reference.
Yeah.
So I think the estimate is at the very smallest, it's several hundred meters across. It's really crazy because it's right angle, right angle, right angle, right angle. Yeah. This is the original image. Yeah. Just this alone, you're like, what the fuck?
Like
is
I said,
that?
if you were to tell me that was a LiDAR picture from South America, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah. It's just too convenient that it makes a square. It just seems so weird.
It is.
Went to CIA.gov and typed in the number that I found. And I'm going to read you this report.
This is scary.
It's something.
Let's go!
All right. This report came out in 2000. All right. It's a little long, but it's worth it.
I'm there. Outkast is playing.
Okay.
Beyonce's still in the Destiny Child. Here we go.
So this is literally a CIA document. The source says Kiev holds Ukraine in Ukraine, whatever. But it's a document from the KGB in Russia. Here it goes. Let's see. In 1991, the KGB. Sorry, it's like. Okay, let me just say this: the CIA documents are very hard to read.
Yeah.
It's like they make that on purpose because no one wants to read them. The KGB top secret Intelligence Administration, a lot of material from that department found their way abroad, in particular to the CIA. As reported by the authorized magazine Canadian Weekly World News, U.S. intelligence obtained a 250-page file on the attack by a UFO on the military unit in Siberia.
Uh-oh.
The file contains not only many documentary photographs and drawings, but also testimonies by actual participants in the events. One of the CIA representatives referred to the case as a, quote, horrific picture of revenge on the part of extraterrestrial creatures. A picture that makes one's blood freeze, end quote. According to the KGB materials, a quiet, low-flying spaceship in the shape of a saucer appeared above a military unit that was conducting routine training maneuvers. For unknown reasons, someone unexpectedly launched a surface-to-air missile and hit the UFO. It fell to Earth not far away, and 5 short humanoids with quote, large heads and large black eyes, end quote, emerged from it. This is where it gets crazy.
What?
This
This
is where it gets crazy. That's not even the crazy part. It is stated that in the testimonies by the 2 soldiers who remained alive, that after freeing themselves from the debris, or freeing themselves from the debris, the alien. I'm like getting nervous.
Yo,
like
you're
talking
good.
about it.
That's so scary.
Sorry. After freeing themselves from the debris, the aliens came close together and then, quote, merged into a single object that acquired a spherical shape, end quote. The object began to buzz and hiss sharply and then became brilliant white. In a few seconds, the extreme bright light at that very instant, 23 soldiers who watched this phenomenon turned into ... stone poles.
What?
Only 2 soldiers who stood in the shade were less exposed to the luminous explosion survived. The KGB report goes on to say that the remains of the UFO and the, quote, petrified soldiers, end quote, were transferred to a secret scientific research institution near Moscow. Specialists assumed that the source of energy that is still unknown to Earthlings instantly changed the structure of the soldiers' living organisms, having transformed it into a substance whose molecular composition is no different from that of limestone.
What?
The CIA representative stated, quote, if the KGB file corresponds to reality, this is extremely menacing case. The aliens possess such weapons and technology that go beyond all assumptions. They can stand up for themselves if attacked.
Wait, help me with the visual.
This is insane.
So they get out of the spaceship, and it's all these little guys.
After it crashes.
Yeah, they shot it down.
They make a little sphere out of their bodies.
They join together.
They merge,
It's
is
like
what they're
their
saying.
molecular structure formed into one sphere.
In a molecular sense.
And then they went,
And then they
And then the people that were exposed to the light or energy
turned to stone.
Turned into stone.
And 2 soldiers survived from it and told the story. And then they went out and collected the
bodies
of
stone.
And this is just being kept filed in America's CIA government's website.
Yes!
Yes, it's been filed.
Yes! But that just got me thinking,
That's
too. It
so
reminded me
scary.
of Lot in the Bible.
I know.
Where his wife turned around and they said, do not look back at it. And then when she turned around, it says she turned into a pillar of salt.
Oh my goodness.
She was gone.
I've never heard a story like that. Right? That is so scary.
That's exactly what I was thinking too when I was watching that. I was just waiting for the video to get over and say it's like Lot's wife in the Bible. Also, maybe like Mount Vesuvius. They say it was a volcano that did that like petrified all those people. Maybe it was something similar. It just makes me think of all the orbs that are like flying around that the military and airplanes and all those people are seeing now. Maybe it's just like the little light bulb aliens like from this story. And maybe it's just like the light was so bright and like powerful that it just petrified them like Mount Vesuvius did to like all the people in Pompeii. Not necessarily the aliens doing it, but maybe it was just like the same effect, like just the flash of heat that like came out of nowhere. And let me know what you think on that one, because that's a wild story that the CIA have that in their archives.
Well, just in time for St. Patrick's Day, crowds are coming by the dozens to get an up-close view at what some say is a piece of Irish folklore.
Some people in the Crichton area of Mobile say a leprechaun has taken up residence in their neighborhood. A leprechaun. NBC 15's Brian Johnson has more.
Bro, I haven't seen that video in years. Probably like 12 years. Maybe longer. Holy shit. I remember that video. That video dropped. The great thing to me is that everyone in that video is 100% serious. It's like just crowd hysteria, right? It's just like if one person says it, enough people say it, people start believing it. That shit is so funny. I miss the old internet so much.
Known to be quite mischievous, and for whatever reason, they're said to be obsessed with gold, which means finding Leprechaun could make you a millionaire, but it could also leave you dead. And I'd gravely those. Even though you might think of them as mythical creatures, the EU classifies leprechauns as a protected species, and at least 1/3 of Irish people believe they exist. You believe in the leprechauns? Yeah, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. All my friends are heathens, take it slow. Wait for them to ask you who you know. Please don't make any sudden moves. You don't know the half of the abuse. All my friends are heathens, take it slow.
That video was so much creepier than it needed to be. That was the most unsettling bullshit video I've ever seen in my life. Made me feel really weird. I guess that's the point, right?
Leprechauns, commonly believed to be mere folklore, may in fact be real. This revelation might be shocking, but an intriguing tale from Norway supports this claim. A man, Luca Eriksson, was entrusted with a unique gold coin by his grandfather, which was said to lure a leprechaun when placed at a rainbow's end. Motivated by tales of the riches these creatures could bestow, Luca embarked on a quest to verify this legend. Despite initial unsuccessful attempts to locate the end of a rainbow, Luca's persistence paid off. Upon placing the coin at the rainbow's terminus, a leprechaun materialized. Seizing the moment, Luca trapped the being and documented the encounter with a photograph. However, in a mystifying turn of events, the creature vanished shortly after. More unsettling, Luca was later discovered in a trance-like state beside a grotesque pot filled with gold. This story begs the question, is the cost of pursuing mythical beings worth the potential consequences?
The Irish government just announced that the first ever real leprechaun has been found. Fiona O'Reilly in Wexford informed the government earlier this week that she was in the Wexford Green Forest for a walk, and she noticed something strange near one of the Ireland pixie trees. She reluctantly walked closer to the tree and discovered little footsteps which seemed to be coming from inside the tree out to the far part of the forest. She told the government ministers that she then saw a 3 to 5 man with a small ginger hat and large round gynecomastia chest. The leprechaun had been crying about for some reason. Later that evening, she went home and found the leprechaun in her home, drinking whiskey like a true Irish little man. The leprechaun is now held in custody in President Macron's house for the rest of eternity, having experiments done to it.
I mean, that's probably what would happen if they caught a leprechaun. They'd definitely just tie him up and do experiments on him for all eternity, I'm sure. Try to get the leprechaun magic secrets. Try to figure out where all the little leprechaun family members are. Just keep repopulating them and granting wishes and getting gold and shit. Stupid, dude.
He died. I was fixing a wall out here along the coast, and I found in the wall a little leather purse with 4 gold coins in it. I knew I'd seen them before. They were the same 4 as he had showed me. I took them up the mountain to a place called the Slate Rock, where he said he found the suit. And when I was up there for the first time, I saw 3 leprechauns.
On the same day?
All together, sitting on a rock about that size, talking to each other.
So you actually had a conversation with this leprechaun, and was it a he or a she?
There are no she leprechauns.
Okay.
Bad news, girls. There are only male leprechauns.
As Ireland's only leprechaun whisperer, we were intrigued. Why did they choose to appear to Kevin, and what did they want?
He asked me, could I get more people to believe? That's one of the reasons why I wrote it all down. And I said I'd do what I could. So I started off with a group of people in Carlingford, and we lobbied for 7 years. We lobbied the EU. And eventually, in 2009, we got them protected by the EU under the European Habitats Directive that protects flora, fauna and wild animals. And we got leprechauns added on to it on the grounds they couldn't say whether they were there or they weren't there.
Okay, there's a question mark, so...
So to be sure, we got the protection order. And ever since, I run the same hunt that I did
Every year.
every year since then, on the first day of summertime, every year.
Not quite convinced, we decided to take a good look around Kevin's Leprechaun and Fairy Cavern, starting with the Fairy Tunnel.
And that runs all the way down to Rostrevor in Northern Ireland in the Mourne.
Damn it. I wish I'd have known about that place when I was in Ireland 2 years ago. Beautiful country. I love it so much. It's probably my favorite place I've ever been. Brilliant. It's a brilliant country. I will be back, and I will find that damn leprechaun. I need to find that leprechaun immediately. Give me the gold.
A man was just kidnapped by a group of leprechauns in a forest in Ireland. Yes, you heard that right. A man called Conrad McGregor was out for a long run through a forest just outside Dublin City in Ireland. He stumbled across something out of the ordinary. It was a small wooden door in the middle of the forest. He entered down through the door when suddenly all he could see was darkness. He panicked and went to grab his bottle of Proper 11, but suddenly the door shut right behind him. He kept crawling down through which seemed to be a never-ending tunnel. Eventually he could see the light. Completely disoriented, he opened the door at the other side, and what he saw will send shivers down your spine. It was a group of small little goblin-looking people, looking right at him. They began to jump with joy and excitement, singing to each other and shouting, "The champ is here! The champ is here!" Conrad then went on to create his own fighting league of leprechauns. To see real footage, comment, "I believe Conrad" down below.
I'm sorry. That was retarded.
Think of this. And I say the word leprechaun, you probably think of this, and not this. These horrifying remains were found near Carrigafuka Castle in County Cork, Ireland. And it's no surprise they were, as this castle is said to be haunted. It is claimed that this mummy is a leprechaun, the mythical Irish creature, and its remains were sent to Sweden to a movie prop maker who made the creature look even more like a leprechaun. Now to me it looks more like something out of The Walking Dead rather than Darby O'Gill, but maybe this one was an evil leprechaun. So let's have a look at the word Carrigafuka. This means Rock of the Fairy or Rock of the Ghost. This castle was built on a sacred rock sometime between 1436 and 1451 by the McCarthy clan. Of course, this was a strategic location near the main route between Macroom and County Kerry, and if you're ever on the Macroom bypass heading towards Killarney or Kinmare, you will see this castle. Now the rock it's built on was said to be haunted by a malicious fuka or ghost, and the locals here claim that it's one of the most haunted castles in Ireland. The castle itself lacks fireplaces, so it's said that it was built purely for military purposes. The story goes that Cormac McCarthy took refuge in this castle to hide away from Queen Elizabeth of England. The reason he did this was because he sided with the Irish at the Battle of Kinsale in 1601. However, Elizabeth did forgive him after he wrote her a lovely letter of apology. Cormac himself is said to haunt the castle. During his lifetime, he was appointed the High Sheriff of County Cork, and his job was to hunt down Irish rebels. The legend goes that he invited an adversary to a banquet in Carrigafuka Castle, and the reasoning behind this was to forge a truce. But in a bizarre turn of events, he instead killed his guest and feasted on his raw flesh. This was a savage and misguided attempt to earn the respect of the English, and instead they were appalled. Cormac's excuse was that an evil spirit from the rock underneath the castle rose up and possessed him. Because of his sins, many say that he is now doomed to spend eternity locked away in Carrigafuka Castle. So the question is, who are you more afraid of? The ghost of Cormac McCarthy or the evil leprechaun?
See, I'll kick the shit out of that little leprechaun. I'll kick that little motherfucker right in his face. I'll just... No, man. You're running up on me looking like that, dude. You're getting karate chopped. Right in your stupid little hat.
Did you know that leprechauns might not just be a figment of Irish folklore? Let's dive into some intriguing sightings that challenge what we think we know. In the year 1959, in a small village in Ireland, a group of schoolchildren claimed they saw a tiny man in green vanish into thin air. their teachers swore it was no prank. Fast forward to 1975, a farmer in County Kerry reported finding a tiny hat and shoes near a Rainbow's End. Skeptical? In 2005, a tourist in Dublin captured a peculiar figure on camera during a festival, sparking debates worldwide. These eyewitness accounts and artifacts have puzzled historians and enthusiasts alike, leading many to wonder if there's more to the leprechaun legend than mere myth. Could these tales be proof that leprechauns are real, or are they just elaborate hoaxes? The mystery remains unsolved, but one thing is certain. The allure of leprechauns continues to capture imaginations. Leave a heart in the comments if you believe, and share your thoughts on this age-old mystery.
This is going to ruin it for a lot of people that love St. Patrick's Day. First of all, it has nothing to do with Irish pride. That's how it was shown later. There's nothing to do with leprechauns or Irish pride. It has nothing to do with that.
You just killed two great fantasies.
I know.
Right there.
Really, if you look into what that was, is that St. Patrick, right, the St. Patrick was a Roman. His father was a Roman official, and he was tasked, just like the Roman Empire did with destroying the Gnostic people who originally were the Egyptians and burning the Library of Alexandria. He was tasked with going to Ireland and the UK and Scotland area, but we specifically think of it as Ireland because that was the core of this,
right.
Where they went there and they were supposed to eradicate the last group on the planet that was still studying was that ancient old religion who were known as the serpents. So if you look at the story of St. Patrick, he was ridding the serpents, the snakes, right? The snakes from Ireland. But if you look all throughout geologic history of that region, there's never been snakes that lived there. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor for the Druid people and pagans as a more general term, anyone who didn't follow this monotheistic Christian religion. And they were seen as a threat because they were the last group that had the ancient knowledge, and they were greatly demonized later. So what happened was, you're celebrating the representation of the genocide and cleansing of the last serpent group on the planet, the Druids who built Stonehenge.
I mean, that's the same story through history all the time we hear with the Catholic Church, the Christians, the Mormons, Romans. Throughout history, people have done that. They've gone and they've wiped out other people for believing a different religion than them. But that's it. That's organized religion for you.
Leprechauns have had a pretty wild PR makeover, and it's a bit of a roller coaster that involves reasons to not take naps on the beach, Irish immigrants, and the color red. Let me explain. I'm Alexandra, and I teach classes on history, mythology, and folklore. So you know leprechauns as the little guys who make shoes, wear green, have a pot full of gold, and are on practically every St. Patrick's Day advertisement and decoration. It's important to note that different regions of Ireland still have different names for them, so it's common to see varying spellings, which also makes it hard to pin down a definition, but it probably means little bodies or shoemaker. We know stories about leprechauns have been around since at least the 800s, and in the first written account of them, we hear about a king named Fergus MacLeody who's sleeping on the beach. And while he's sleeping, a group of leprechauns try to drag him into the water. Thankfully, Fergus wakes up in time and is able to save himself, but the leprechauns feel no remorse. But not every story casts them as dangerous and mischievous to the point of bodily harm. Sometimes they can actually be helpful. Leprechauns can grant wishes, but the stories say you should never accept because that wish will come with some huge price or unexpected consequence. The way leprechauns dress varies from one story to the next, but often they're described as having buckles on their shoes, magic hats that can transport them, and they really like the color red. Yeah, red, not usually green. However, the Leinster version of leprechauns really prefer green, and this seems to be where we get the modern depictions. They stand between a few inches and a few feet tall, and they are shoemakers, a trait which has endured as stories were passed down. So what's up with the pot of gold thing? That might be because shoemaking was a very profitable business, so the pot of gold was a sign of how hardworking leprechauns are. There are two very similar beings that are often confused with leprechauns, the Clurachaun and the Fardarig. Clurachaun is known for its excessive drinking, which is probably where we get the idea of leprechauns enjoying a drink or two. And the Fardarig is kind of like a leprechaun in a bad mood, which enforced the idea of leprechauns being menacing. But then they got an unfairly bad reputation in the 1800s, when Irish immigrants were forced to leave their homeland during the Great Hunger. In a tale as old as time, when Irish people fled to places like the United States, they weren't treated well. And since things weren't already bad enough for them, Irish people were stereotyped as lazy drinkers who are just too happy which seems like a weird insult. And of course, they brought a lot of their folk tales with them. And so as stories of leprechauns spread, leprechauns became heavily associated with the people who told their stories, which meant the same stereotypes were applied to leprechauns themselves. Happy, lazy drunks. Pretty offensive overall, especially since their whole deal was being hard workers. But then with commercialism and the rising popularity of St. Patrick's Day celebrations, leprechauns got another PR makeover. Fun, lucky, friendly, if a bit mischievous, and a really good way to sell a pint of dark beer on St. Patrick's Day.
All things I had zero knowledge about. I had no idea where leprechauns came from. So I figure I'll just talk about leprechauns being evil and like granting wishes and casting spells and whatnot. I should include something really talking about the history of leprechauns and the history of St. Patty's Day. So yeah, that's all wild to me. So I guess there's just one question to ask, like, do you believe leprechauns are real? Because I know there's a lot of people believe fairies are real, mermaids, like all kinds of stuff, right? But I feel like leprechauns are kind of in a different bracket or a different category, where a lot of people that believe that stuff is real don't necessarily believe leprechauns are real. You'll believe in like a goblin or like a gnome, but not a leprechaun, because I think leprechauns have been so commercialized that they're just kind of, like this woman said, they've been marketed. So it kind of kills the credibility, I think, in some aspects. But I don't know. Let me know what you think, because I don't know. I don't have an idea. There's not a lot of eyewitness accounts of leprechauns, and there are lots of different stories. Hence all the AI videos and clips of stories with, just footage over them and stuff. But still fun. Still super fun.
Hey friends, breaking news at the Pyramid of Giza. You are not going to believe what they found, not only inside the Great Pyramids, but underneath the Great Pyramids. This discovery is going to change everything that we know about, well, everything. Check this out, guys. So in 2022, they used this new type of technology. It's called synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography, and it's something that they can use to look inside of things. And they use this kind of radar to make this like 3D model of the interior of things, and they can see stuff with this technology that you can't see any other way. And when they did this, they found some remarkable things that they didn't expect to find inside the pyramid. Like these 5 new chambers that they didn't know existed before, and this unique sloping roof that they can't really explain. But when they redid this experiment a couple years later, that's when things got real crazy. So this is the pyramid, and this is underground. They found 8 of these gigantic columns that go down over a mile, guys, down into the ground. And you see these things that are wrapped around them? They think that these are actually staircases, pathways that go down, but they also act as like a coil that you would find on some sort of like an electromagnetic battery or something like that. And these things go down over a mile into the ground, and you're never gonna believe what they go into. All 8 of them feed into these 2 gigantic cubes. These cubes are hundreds of feet wide and tall. Now, this is super significant because in the Emerald Tablets and all sorts of other ancient texts and books and things like that, they have talked about things underneath the Great Pyramid, like the halls of Amenti and the secret libraries of Atlantis and things like that. And now we're finding these gigantic columns that go down over a mile from the base of the pyramid into these gigantic cube rooms. So the official findings just came out a few days ago, and they say near the base of the pyramid, 5 identical structures are seen connected by geometric pathways. Inside each of these are 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof. This is what's above. This is what's actually inside the pyramid. Below these 5 structures are 8 cylindrical structures which appear to be vertical wells, hollow inside and surrounded by descending spiral pathways. These 8 vertically aligned cylindrical structures, arranged in 2 parallel rows from north to south, descend to a depth of 648 meters. That is so far down, where they all merge into 2 large cubic structures measuring approximately 80 meters per side. The entire structure extends approximately 2 kilometers beneath the surface. That's 1.2 miles, and extends beneath all 3 pyramids of the Giza Plateau complex. Holy cow, guys. So not only did they find 5 new structures inside the Great Pyramid that have never been discovered and explored before, but underneath the pyramid, going down over a mile, are 8 gigantic tubes surrounded by spiral staircases that feed into these 2 huge boxes. Now, what could these things do? Well, the paper goes on to hypothesize The massive underground structure revealed by the recent SAR data shows what appear to be a mechanical or functional system, and this has been hypothesized in the past. Nikola Tesla believed that the pyramids could harness Earth's natural frequencies. This arguably inspired his experiments in wireless energy transmission scalar waves. In the Giza power plant, Christopher Dunn, this is a book, argued that the Great Pyramid was a power-generating machine using resonant and acoustic forces to convert mechanical stress into electricity. In the Giza Death Star, another book, Joseph Farrell proposed that the Great Pyramid of Giza was a weapon of mass destruction using a type of physics that he calls paleophysics to focus energy as a scalar weapon. Death Star? Now, I don't know what they're for, but all I know is with the whole Chris Bledsoe coming up Easter thing of next year, and the gaze of the Red Star Regulus and the Sphinx and the opening of the Atlantis, library, and all these things that have been prophesized, and now we're finding this. Ooh, all I know is keep your eyes on these pyramids, baby, because things are getting really interesting. Let me know what you guys think about this. Have a beautiful day. Peace.
We did it! Finally being taken serious. I've said for so long that the Egyptians did not build the pyramids or the Sphinx and stumbled upon it and basically just set up camp there, right? And lived there and kind of took over the area. They stumbled upon it somehow at some point. And with that came the reshaping of the Sphinx's face and all that stuff. But man, those being coils to generate electricity and maybe hold them in a hub and those two giant structures beneath them. Then you have the library that Thoth wrote about in the Emerald Tablets. Could be that, could be both. And this is very serious, research, by the way. This isn't I know that as conspiracy theories, we're pretty well open to things, but as far as actual research and mainstream archaeology, this is stuff that people that aren't so much awake, maybe the rest of us are, that are open to these kinds of fringe ideas, that they will actually take this serious. This kind of research is actually legitimized and isn't really frowned upon as conspiracy theory. Though one thing that does bother me, who's that Egyptologist that basically doesn't let anyone else excavate or dig or research in Egypt if it has anything that counteracts the known history of Egypt and the pyramids and stuff? I could see them getting in the way. I could see the Egyptian government or whoever getting in the way and not letting this actually be proven, because like I said before, I feel things like this could force people to rewrite history, forcing people to rewrite religion, forcing them to rewrite, Judeo-Christian religions. Because if this is proof of a advanced civilization, pre-flood, a pre-flood civilization that is super advanced and come up with these however long before modern civilizations. I mean, dude, that could be devastating to all these sects of control, right? That use either mythology or religion or any kind of superior knowledge to control the masses and keep history, written by the victors. So fingers crossed that this actually gets pushed ahead, pushed forward, and gets some research behind it and some actual proof, because this is the kind of stuff that we've been waiting for. And on top of that, this information is going to be elaborated on. I guess there is going to be a 4-hour presentation talking about these findings and more information about them. This is basically just enough that they released to get people excited and get people paying attention to actually, I feel get enough people to watch the actual evidence that they have. So, it won't just be a small group of people watching it. It'll be a huge group of people that are oh, this is a great finding. And then they're probably going to just drop some insane, crazy, knowledge, undeniable proof of some stuff. And people are oh, it's too late to not allow them to put this information out. We thought it was just going to be, this LiDAR or whatever it is.
So I'm going to show you something pretty wild. Underneath the Khafre Pyramid, one of the Great Pyramids of Giza, they discovered that is 2 kilometers in size.
Last Saturday, this March 15th press release summarized the key findings in the team's research of the second largest pyramid of the Giza Plateau, known as the Khafre Pyramid. And what they found was astonishing. The analysis of dozens of tomographic SAR images obtained from different angles enabled the 3D reconstruction of inside the Pyramid of Khafre and deep beneath the surface of the plateau. Near the base of the pyramid, 5 identical structures are seen, connected by geometric pathways. Inside each of these are 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof. Below these 5 structures are 8 cylindrical structures, which appear to be vertical wells high inside and surrounded by descending spiral pathways.
Spirals.
These 8 vertically aligned cylindrical structures arranged in 2 parallel rows from north to south, descend to a depth of 648 meters, where they all merge into 2 large cubic structures, measuring approximately 80 meters per side. The entire structure extends approximately 2 kilometers beneath the surface and extends beneath all 3 pyramids.
I also saw something that said it wasn't just under this pyramid. Like there were like these kinds of things like under the entire Giza Plateau. These kinds of like structures and I don't know if they're like bracers or foundations or Tesla coils or staircase or something. It's like the entire Giza Plateau is like on top of something that's super like deep underground. So it just begs the question, was this dug like that deep and all this stuff built underground like however long ago with the pyramid on top of it? Or was the pyramid built on top of something and at whatever point those like 2 meters below the surface was actually like the ground at that point? Because you have to think how much erosion, how old would it have to be for over 2 meters of erosion and dust, sand and everything to build up? Like how long would it take for 1.5 miles essentially of sand and dirt and everything to like pile up on top of each other? And if that's not the case, the better answer would be the Great Flood, right? The Younger Dryas, the flood of Noah's Ark, the Great Mud Flood, to where these would have to be built so much longer ago, so much further back in history than what modern day archaeology says they were built.
The pyramids in ancient Egypt were energy generators. Most believed they were just tombs, but no mummies were ever Great Pyramid. Instead, the structure itself suggests something far more advanced. The materials, limestone, granite, and dolomite, are all highly conductive. Combined with underground water channels, they created an electromagnetic field, which equals wireless energy. The ancient Egyptians and the ancient world were far more advanced than we were, but someone behind the scenes has purposely changed history to control us. The pyramid.
First, we were gods of the world before Noah's flood, worshipped, feared, and revered as the architects of civilization. After the great flood reshaped your lands, we became the Anunnaki, guiding the empires of Mesopotamia and Egypt, building dynasties in our image. As time passed, our name changed again. You named us angels and demons. Due to the rule of the Catholic Church, we started to become myths, but we never left. We have always been here, watching, waiting. We programmed your minds through your stories, your technology, your science fiction. So when we return, you will not question. This time, you will not call us gods. You will call us aliens.
This is raw, unfiltered scientific proof of what the pyramids were really built for. This is what a tomb looks like. Dark, enclosed, and filled with hieroglyphs. But this is the Great Pyramid of Giza, the biggest tomb in the world. The closer you look, the more you realize that this pyramid was definitely not made for burying the dead. Why? Because the materials used to build it are exactly what we use today to create electricity. Let's break it down. Giza was once covered in bright white casing stones, polished to perfection and virtually airtight. These stones were made of limestone from Tura, a quarry 500 miles away. Wait, what? They dragged stones the length of Florida just to make the pyramids look nice and shiny? Not quite. This special limestone from Tura has less magnesium than regular limestone, making it an ideal insulator of electricity. Oh, and it also reflects sunlight, keeping the inside cool. Coincidence? Maybe, but let's keep digging. The interior chambers of the pyramid were built with rose granite, which contains asterisk 85% quartz. Quartz is piezoelectric, meaning it generates a small electric charge when moved or squeezed. The same quartz we use to power wash batteries and barbecue lighters. But that's not all. Granite also ionizes the air inside the chambers, further increasing the conductivity of electricity. And guess what? This granite was sourced from Aswan, another quarry hundreds of miles away. Now here's where it gets weird. The granite slabs inside Giza have these strange structural designs that don't exactly look decorative. In fact, they're incredibly difficult to make. Why would you build a roof like this using 80-ton stone blocks from hundreds of miles away when you can't even see it from inside the chamber? Historians claim these were relieving chambers meant to prevent the room from collapsing under the weight of the pyramid. But here's the kicker. The chambers below had no such relief. On the other hand, if you were somehow able to apply pressure to these chambers, you'd get an electric charge from the quartz. A lot of it. But electricity can't just exist on its own. To utilize it, you need to direct it through something. Enter copper, a metal often used in wires to conduct electricity. And guess what a remote camera revealed in the pyramid's narrow shafts just a few years ago? 2 copper handles embedded into the stone at the end of the shaft, the only metal ever confirmed in Giza. Oh, and there's also what appears to be a wiring diagram painted on the side of the shaft. Modern Egyptologists claim these handles were used with ropes to pull jars up the shaft. Seriously? They're really reaching at this point. These shafts have no confirmed purpose. Some call them air vents, but some don't even lead to the outside. And in 2013, former Egyptian Antiquities Minister Zahi Hawass was accused of stealing artifacts from the pyramid. Among the rumored stolen items, long copper wires. Strange, right? Just what you'd need to complete an electric current.
That's him. That's that son of a bum I was talking about that doesn't let anyone learn anything more about Egypt. It's so crazy. Screw that guy. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. This finding, it kind of like is on the verge of confirming a lot of this stuff that we've been thinking about. Because if everything that this new study, these new findings are showing is true, then everything we know is a lie. Everything in writing is a lie, and it actually makes more sense for these theories of like it conducting electricity and it being much older than it is, and it being from an advanced civilization, a much smarter advanced civilization with the ability to build marvels that we still don't, were around prior to a great flood. Like it all just kind of coalesces and brings everything together. Like, we're not crazy. We're not crazy. This is good to know that, right?
Did you know that the Great Pyramid is almost perfectly aligned to what is called true north? Think it's a coincidence? Well, did you know that the Great Pyramid sides are on the exact line of the equator? And the 3 pyramids of Giza are perfectly aligned to match the Belt of Orion. When you look at all the facts, it doesn't take a genius to understand that whoever built the most accurately aligned structure on Earth was not a simple people group using primitive methods, but incredibly intelligent workers.
Humans have 46 chromosomes and all primates have 48. All primates on Earth.
I didn't know that.
Every single primate has 48 chromosomes. It has to do with packages of DNA, basically. What they found within the human Homo sapiens sapien was that there was something within our DNA where parts of it had been like altered. Yeah, I'm like serious. And what they call those alterations and those things that scientists don't know, they call it junk DNA. That's what scientists call it, because when they compared every other comparable thing on Earth genetically, they found this small little area within our genetics that doesn't match anything on the planet. But here's the thing that's weird. Not only take the chromosome thing for a minute, which is very, very strange, because how something like a splicing of a DNA or altering could happen naturally, I've seen no anthropologist or scientist that can explain that. We're not strong anymore at all. Neanderthals and Denisovians were unbelievably strong.
Right.
The way that we have genetic diseases and the way our bone structure is and everything, it's like it was designed in a way to function for a different reason, to not be living off the land, to function as something with like a greater purpose.
Yes.
According to interpretations of ancient Egyptian papyrus, as well as Sumerian cuneiform tablets, pyramid wars are theorized to have taken place about a millennia after the Great Deluge. Our saga begins in an era when divine entities, referred to as the Anunnaki in Sumerian mythology, held sway over the earth and its inhabitants. Central to the narrative is the land of Kem, ancient Egypt, where His Majesty Ra, the Falcon of the Horizon, and his lineage played pivotal roles in the unfolding drama. The tension brewed over the control of pivotal structures, the pyramids of Giza, and the strategic spaceport located in the Sinai Peninsula. The First Pyramid War was ignited by deep-seated rivalries among the gods, particularly between the factions led by Enki Ptah and his son, Ra-Marduk. The Sumerian paradise myth and Egyptian theological texts hint at complex familial relationships and power dynamics among the gods, setting the stage for conflict. The catalyst for the First Pyramid War was the machinations of Seth, who coveted the powers and territories allotted to Osiris, including the fertile lands of Lower Egypt and the monumental Giza pyramids. This conflict wasn't merely about territorial control, but also about influencing the space activities and the celestial comings and goings of the gods. Horus, the avenger of Osiris, led the charge against Seth, backed by the technological marvel of the winged disk, crafted by Thoth. The war culminated in Horus's victory, relegating Seth to the fringes of the Egyptian pantheon and securing the divine and earthly realms under Horus's dominion. The aftermath of the First Pyramid War set the stage for the Second Pyramid War, fueled by unresolved disputes and the illegal occupation of strategic territories by the descendants of the Hamitic Canaan. This war was not just a rehash of previous conflicts, but a sophisticated engagement involving advanced weaponry and strategies, showcasing the gods' prowess and their manipulation of natural and technological resources. Ninurta, representing the Enlilites, emerged as a key figure, employing a blend of military might and strategic ingenuity to challenge the defenses of the Great Pyramid. The conflict saw the involvement of other deities, including Ishtar and Nergal, each playing crucial roles in the unfolding battles.
Dude, if all this comes to light and ends up being true, and is actually allowed to be, like, shown to be true, I'm going to be the happiest person in the world. I'm going to be so happy when all this bullshit that we've been being told forever just collapses. Just collapses around us. And like, oh, no, we were wrong. It's so aggravating knowing that there are, like, organizations and countries and leaders and just people with self-interest that are, like, preventing us from knowing the truth, that don't want to dig anymore because they don't want us to know the truth, or where there's aliens not telling us the truth for some reason, or politicians or business owners or oil tycoons or whatever. The fact that there are people that don't want us to know the truth, people that don't want us to dig and know the truth, people that don't want to work together collectively as a race, like, of humans, and work to learn from our past and work to progress and build and grow toward the future. It's so frustrating to me. I hate that humans are so selfish, because I just want to know, and I'm sure you do too, I just want to know what our past is. I want to know what really happened. I want to know what's really happening. And I want to know that, you know, we're all working together to get our society and our race as humans and residents of this planet, that we're working to grow and progress and explore and learn. And that's really all I want. So I hope this is true. And I hope it's accepted by mainstream science and archaeology, because that is a huge step for people to start waking up and accepting these, like, fringe topics that we talk about on this channel every day, pretty much. So, but that's that. So let me know what you think down below. If I missed anything, if you have any other information, drop a comment. Let me know. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video, share it with a friend, and comment. Let me know what you want to see in the next one. Until next time, peace.